see taking place tomorrow and Friday is the initial hearings of dozens of people who were arrested as part of the student protest that took place last year. And some of the people that are going to be having their initial hearings include Alfie Meadows, who's also going to be having his hearing on Friday, Brian Simpson, a student at Strathclyde University, who's been charged with a fray for his role in occupying Millbank Tower, something that I think we should not only not be condemning, but something we should celebrate as marking the beginning of our resistance to the tonight's meeting really is look at how we can maximise our support for all of those protesters that are going to be up tomorrow and Friday. In reality, it could have been any one of us that was arrested and facing these charges, so we all have a responsibility to get behind and say an injury to one is an injury to all. But I think it's also, the meeting tonight is about how we begin to challenge the lies really that are being propagated by the government, by the media, by the police. And partly it's about how we get our message out around that, and also how we challenge a police force that is increasingly politicised and increasingly out of control.
Pre-crime is being committed and people being arrested for acts they haven't even committed yet, and some of them haven't even thought of yet. And that's the level of the state reaction that we're up against. And more is to come. The fear now, as I say, is the link between direct action and industrial action. That's why the statement this week at Vince Cable at the GMB conference to unions is that if you take action, we'll introduce further anti-trade union legislation. So bit by bit, they're undermining every element of our civil liberties that we can adhere to and use to resist.
They are scared because there are more and more people protesting. I think we are getting to the stages now where they're feeling a bit overwhelmed and they can't really deal with us. An illustration of this is that I was arrested at 25 to 7 in the evening alongside the other 144 people, and I didn't get into a cell which was 1.2 miles away until 3 o'clock in the morning. The reason for that is they just didn't know what to do with us. There were just so many of us.
The point about an effigy is that it's like saying, if you're feeling angry, if you're feeling like violence, take it out on an effigy, have a laugh and move on. It was street theatre. And you know, that's what we did. We got arrested for it. There were young people arrested in the region of Soho Square, actually arrested for putting on face paint. And they included 9-year-old, 7-year-old girls and their parents.
If you look at the levellers who struggled to get votes for working men and were attacked by the army, if you look at the suffragettes who struggled for votes for women, it's always the same. The establishment, when faced with something they don't like, will mobilise all the forces at their disposal, in case propaganda, and nowadays the media and so on, and try and frighten people into accepting something they shouldn't accept.
To Alfie's case, as everyone knows, he sustained brain injury having been struck on the head with a baton by a Metropolitan Police officer at the protest about tuition fees on the 9th of December 2010. That assault is subject of an investigation by the Independent Police Complaints Commission, the IPCC. The Metropolitan Police charged Alfie with violent disorder. He will appear for the first time at City of Westminster Magistrates Court.
My daughter was kettled in Whitehall from about midday, and she texted me when I was at work and said I'd been kettled, and they said I should be here for a couple of hours. I went down after work to join quite a lot of parents in Whitehall, and I was absolutely appalled and went from being very upset to very angry, asking the police, where is my daughter? How can I speak to her? How is it legal that you can just contain her over there without me being allowed to speak to her? I know about child protection, and I don't think she should be over there unaccompanied. And who are you to deny me access to my daughter? I didn't get anywhere.
That Merlin Emanuel is here with us tonight, the nephew of David Emanuel, Smiley Culture, who died of a stab wound during a police raid. So I'd like to welcome Merlin to come and talk about their campaign.
We basically champion justice and equality in any area that we find it. My life has changed since my uncle's death. I come from music. That's what I'd done, that's what I did. And it wasn't until Smiley died, I'd be honest, I was quite passive to it until it actually affected my family. And it's only since then really interacting with families who have lost people, lost loved ones, and people who have actually been through the experiences that I've really realised how frequent it is.
As we all know, Alfie needed emergency brain surgery to save his life after the injuries he suffered at that demonstration on December the 9th. The same demonstration at which I was twice dragged out of my wheelchair by members of the Metropolitan Police. But apparently, Alfie's survival is too much for the police to stomach.
A generation really that was so enraged with the prospect of the futures being sacrificed for a crisis that they did not cause. I think it's this prospect, and it's prospect of what happens on the 30th of June, now that you've got Vince Cable addressing GMB meetings saying that he's going to be curtailing not only the right to protest but the right to strike. It's this kind of fear that this momentum really gains substance amongst the working class that really strikes fear into the hearts of people like David Cameron and Nick Clegg. I think the state's reaction to crush these protests is testament to that fear.
Responsible for nearly killing Alfie that should be in the dock today. It should not be Brian Simpson who is in the dock tomorrow for taking part in the occupation of the Tory Party HQ at Millbank, just round the corner. It should be the police officers that dragged Jody McIntyre from his wheelchair and inadvertently hit him with the baton. Those are the people that should be in the dock today.
If we don't defend the right to protest, then we are absolutely defenceless against the ideological attack that's been waged against all of us. That's why every single one of us needs to be behind Alfie Meadows today. Every single one of us needs to be behind every protester that is facing charges. Windows are more important than students' education. That the police van on Whitehall was more important than the students who were being deprived their EMA or were having their tuition fees trebled.
The right to protest is a human right and we must protest. We haven't got any choice, because if we don't protest, everything's going to get even worse, and things are bad enough already. We've got to fight for that right to protest.
These students who put the resistance onto the agenda in Britain are not the real criminals. The real criminals are sitting in the House of Parliament. They're sitting in the London down the road on Victoria Street. Education as we know it. But the story started on the 10th of November when we occupied Millbank Tower. And all of us have been complicit in occupying Millbank Tower. All of us are Brian Simpson today.
So we stand absolutely with all the protesters who are going into the hearings today. This is part of a campaign against a government attack on the majority of people in this country. We stand with the protesters and we'll all stand together on the 30th of June.
Because I've known Brian for maybe 4 or 5 years now, and since he's been involved, he's fought against war, he's fought for Palestinian rights, he's fought against cuts. In fact, he's fought for every single thing which is just and which is right. And so why is it him that's going into the dock today?
I just want to send my wishes to Brian and to everybody else that's been charged with whatever it is they've been charged. We know that the police are just here trying to intimidate us, trying to take our energies away from fighting the cuts, putting all our energies into fighting the police, when we all know it should be the police that are put on trial.
And it's so important today that all these students who have been brought before the court on trumped-up charges are supported, because these are the leaders. These are the ones who are the inspiration to the rest of us, and we must stand with them.
Defend the right to protest is a vital campaign. The police are out of control. There's no legitimacy of what they're doing. There's no public support of what they're doing. We need a public inquiry, but we need a people's inquiry into what the police are doing. They can't continue in the way they are.
Those people are a bunch of millionaires. They don't even understand our cause. They don't even understand what people are going through. And that's ridiculous. And then for them to actually put people up there in trial, like you've got them bombing the people of Libya. They're spending $6 million every week. They're bombing Libya, and then they keep saying there is no money. And that's just ridiculous for us. And I think we must continue to protest.
Because if we start to
differentiate between good and bad protesters, between peaceful and those who smash windows, which I haven't done, by the way, then we are playing into the hands of people like Cameron and Clegg, because they're trying to divide this movement, to defend every single student and worker that is under attack. Because if we lose the right to protest, then we lose the right to defend ourselves against the ideological assault on our wages, on our conditions, on our livelihoods, and on our working class life, on our services. If we allow the right to protest to go down without a fight, if we allow the Fortnum and Mason occupiers and the occupiers of Millbank and Alfie Meadows and Jodie McIntyre, if they go down, then the entire anti-austerity movement goes down with it. Because if we lose the right to protest, then we lose the only defence we have as a class against the tyrants in government.